Dominic Fuller stared at the text message on his phone for the 5th time, his coffee growing cold beside his laptop. The anonymous tip had come 3 days ago, but he refused to believe it until now. Check the Rosemont Hotel, room 812. Thursday at 2 p.m. See who your wife really is. He should not have gone. 12 years of marriage had built trust, or so he thought. But something about the precision of the message gnawed at him. Dominic had canceled his afternoon meetings and driven across town to the upscale hotel, where a $100 bill to the desk clerk had gained him access to the security monitor feed. The sight of Valerie, his wife, entering room 812 was like watching someone else's life. When Preston Novak followed her in 15 minutes later, Dominic felt his world crater beneath him. Preston Novak, real estate developer, yacht club member, and Dominic's good friend. They had dinner at the Novaks' beachfront home just 2 weeks ago. Preston's wife, Abigail, had hugged Dominic goodbye while his own wife secretly carried on with her husband. Now, 5 days later, Dominic sat across from his lawyer, Benjamin Hayes, reviewing divorce papers. "She's asking for full custody of Olivia," Benjamin said, sliding the document across his mahogany desk, "and she's claiming emotional abandonment." Dominic laughed bitterly. Emotional abandonment? I built my entire schedule around her and Olivia. I turned down partnerships in 3 states to keep us here because she did not want to move. Dominic had built Fuller Architecture from nothing, transforming it into one of the most sought-after firms in the state. While Valerie had changed career paths 4 times in their marriage, he remained the steady foundation supporting their lifestyle. "That's not all," Benjamin continued. "She is claiming your work habits made you an absent father." "Absent father?" Dominic's voice rose. "I coached Olivia's soccer team for 3 years. I've never missed a school concert or parent-teacher conference." "I know, Dom, but you need to prepare yourself. This is getting ugly fast." Valerie's hired Lawrence Stanton. Stanton was known for scorched earth divorce tactics. If Valerie had secured his services, she planned to destroy Dominic completely. "Did she mention Preston Novak in any of the filings?" Benjamin shook his head. "Not a word. According to these documents, there was no infidelity involved." "Convenient," Dominic muttered. That evening, Dominic sat at his kitchen island in the empty house he designed himself, scrolling through family photos on his phone. Olivia's toothy grin at age 7. Valerie and Dominic in Paris for their 10th anniversary. The 3 of them on the boat last summer. All the while, the betrayal had been brewing quietly, a storm gathering in the distance. His phone buzzed with a text from Valerie. "I'm picking up more of my things tomorrow. Please make sure you're not there. We need space." Dominic had not cried since his father died 15 years ago. But tonight, alone in the dark kitchen, he allowed himself one night of weakness. Tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow, the man who had risen from nothing to build his empire would start planning again. "Mr. Fuller, while I understand your concerns, the evidence provided by Mrs. Fuller's counsel paints a concerning picture of your household dynamics." Judge Patricia Woodson peered over her glasses at Dominic, who stood ramrod straight beside Benjamin. Across the courtroom, Valerie dabbed at dry eyes with a tissue, Lawrence Stanton's hand protectively on her shoulder. "Your Honor, my client has been nothing but an exemplary father," Benjamin argued. "We have testimonials from teachers, coaches, and neighbors attesting to his involvement in his daughter's life." The judge nodded. "I've reviewed those documents, Mr. Hayes. I've also reviewed Mrs. Fuller's documented claims of Mr. Fuller's explosive temper, including the incident last Christmas." Dominic felt his jaw tighten. The incident had been nothing more than a raised voice when he discovered Valerie had maxed out their joint credit card on a fur coat while simultaneously donating to animal rights charities for the tax write-off. "For now," Judge Woodson continued, "I'm granting temporary primary physical custody to Mrs. Fuller with weekend visitation for Mr. Fuller. We'll reassess in 90 days. The gavel fell with finality. Across the room, Valerie's perfectly composed face broke into the barest hint of a smile. Outside the courthouse, Dominic loosened his tie as Benjamin tried to offer reassurance. It's temporary. Dom. We'll gather more evidence, show your home is stable. Did you see her? Dominic asked quietly. She wore the pearl earrings I gave her for our anniversary, using gifts from our marriage to help destroy it. Dominic's phone rang. A client calling about a delayed project. Even as his personal life imploded, deadlines did not change. He took the call, slipping into professional mode with practiced ease. Mr. Wayland? Yes. I understand your concerns. The permits were delayed, but I've spoken with the county office personally this morning. We should have approval by Tuesday. After finishing the call, Dominic noticed a sleek, black Maserati pulling up to the curb. Preston Novak emerged, straightening his custom suit before walking toward Valerie, who waited at the courthouse steps. They did not embrace, too public, but Preston's hand lingered on Valerie's lower back as he guided her to the passenger door. Who brings their affair partner to a custody hearing? Benjamin muttered. Someone who's already won, Dominic replied. That weekend, Dominic picked up Olivia for their first court-mandated visit. The house he had built was suddenly filled with her laughter, echoing through rooms that had been too quiet for far too long. His 9-year-old daughter's face lit up when she saw him, racing down the walkway of Valerie's new downtown condo. Daddy, she cried, launching herself into his arms. Mom said you were really busy with work, and that's why I could not see you. Something hardened in Dominic's chest. I'm never too busy for you, Liv. Never. Later, as they built a model skyscraper together in his apartment, a downtown rental he'd taken temporarily, Olivia looked up with her mother's green eyes. Are you sad, Daddy? Dominic carefully placed a tiny architectural piece. Sometimes. But I'm happy when I'm with you. Mom's friend Preston says you just going through a phase. That dads sometimes need to find themselves. She wrinkled her nose. What does that even mean? Dominic set down the model. Olivia, what else does Preston say about me? The floodgates opened. Preston had opinions on everything: Dominic's career choices, his parenting style, even his taste in cars, all conveyed to a 9-year-old as casual conversation. That night, after returning Olivia to Valerie's condo, Dominic drove to the overlook above the city. The lights below mirrored the stars above, both equally distant and cold. He pulled out his phone and made a call to someone he had not spoken to in years. Malcolm, it's Dominic Fuller. I need that favor you owe me. 6 months passed in a blur of courtrooms, client meetings, and precious weekends with Olivia. The divorce proceedings dragged on, with Valerie requesting more alimony each month as Dominic's firm landed bigger projects. Meanwhile, Preston's development company, Novak Properties, began winning bids on projects that had previously been earmarked for Fuller Architecture. Malcolm Turner, Dominic's college roommate turned private investigator, delivered weekly reports documenting Valerie and Preston's relationship. 2 months after the separation filing, Preston had divorced Abigail, citing irreconcilable differences and offering a generous settlement to keep things quiet. Then came the invitation, delivered by courier to Dominic's office. Mr. and Mrs. Arnold Simmons request your presence at the engagement celebration of their daughter, Valerie Marie Simmons Fuller, to Mr. Preston William Novak. The engagement dinner was being held at the Oakmont Club, where Dominic's membership application had been indefinitely waitlisted 3 times despite his success, while Preston had been a legacy member since birth. You not actually going, are you? Asked Trevor Booker, Dominic's project manager and closest friend, as they reviewed blueprints in the office. Olivia called and begged me to come, Dominic said. Her mother told her I would not show up because I'm bitter. Dominic traced a line on the blueprint. I would not give Valerie the satisfaction of being right. The night of the dinner, Dominic arrived exactly 12 minutes late, enough to make an entrance, but not enough to be considered rude. The grand foyer was abuzz with laughter and sparkling conversation as golden light spilled through the crystal chandeliers. The Oakmont's ballroom glittered with crystal and old money, neither of which had been part of Dominic's upbringing. Valerie spotted him immediately, her practiced smile faltering for just a moment before she whispered something to Preston. They approached together, the perfect couple. "Dominic, I'm so glad you could make it," Valerie said, air kissing near his cheek. Her diamond engagement ring caught the light, at least 4 carats larger than the one Dominic had saved for years to buy her. "Would not miss it," Dominic replied evenly. "Where's Olivia?" "With the other children in the club's playroom. We thought it best to keep tonight adults only," Preston explained, his hand possessively on Valerie's waist. Dominic nodded and moved toward the bar. Throughout dinner, he felt the weight of stares, Valerie's family, Preston's business associates, and country club members who'd known both families for generations. He was the outsider, the abandoned husband, an object of pity or judgment depending on which rumors they believed. When dessert was served, Dominic excused himself to find Olivia. In the playroom, his daughter sat alone in a corner, still in her party dress but with a book open on her lap. "Hey, Butterfly," he said, sitting beside her. Olivia looked up, her face brightening. "Daddy, you really came. I told you I would. I always keep my promises to you." She closed her book. "Preston said you probably would not stay for cake." "Did he? Well, I'm full of surprises." He glanced at her book, *The Secret Garden Star. "Is that from the library?" Olivia shook her head. "It was in a box Preston packed up from our old house. He said it was trash, but I took it because you used to read it to me." Something cold settled in Dominic's chest. "What box, Liv?" "The one with all our photo albums and stuff. Preston said Mom wanted to purge bad memories." Dominic took a careful breath. "Let's go get some cake, shall we?" When they returned to the ballroom, the toasts had begun. Valerie's father, Arnold, spoke about how Preston was the son he'd always wanted. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Dominic had heard the joke before at family gatherings. Then Howard Reed, Dominic's uncle and only attending family member, stood to offer surprising congratulations. "To new beginnings," he said, raising his glass to Preston, "and to moving up in the world, which is what real men do." His eyes flicked to Dominic. The implied comparison hung in the air. Dominic felt Olivia's small hand slip into his beneath the table. As coffee was served, Valerie clinked her glass, drawing everyone's attention. Her smile was radiant, her voice carrying across the ballroom. "I'd like to thank everyone for celebrating with us tonight. Finding true love is rare, and I'm thankful every day that Preston came into my life when he did." She paused, her gaze sliding to Dominic. "I hope I never end up like some people, single with a kid at 40. The room burst into laughter. Dominic felt Olivia's hand tighten in his. He squeezed it gently, anchoring her and himself as the night went on, determined not to let bitterness win. From 2 tables over, Dominic's uncle Howard chuckled loudly. "Real women do not want used goods," he announced, raising his glass again. More laughter. Even Dominic's mother, Eleanor, seated at Howard's table, covered a smile with her napkin. Dominic started to stand, ready to take Olivia and leave, when Preston tapped his own glass and rose. "If I could say something," he began, his voice carrying authority that silenced the room. "Before we continue, I think it's important that everyone knows something." Preston set down his glass and walked deliberately toward Dominic's table. The room fell silent. All eyes tracked the groom-to-be. "Dominic," Preston said, extending his hand. "Thank you for coming tonight. Your presence means more than most here understand." Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd. Preston turned to address the room, his hand still extended toward Dominic. "Many of you have made assumptions about why Valerie and Dominic's marriage ended. Some of those assumptions have been voiced tonight at what should be a celebration." Valerie's smile froze on her face. "Preston, darling, perhaps now is not. On the contrary," Preston continued, "now is exactly the time." He looked directly at Dominic. "The truth deserves to be heard." The silence in the Oakmont ballroom was absolute. Preston Novak stood in the center of the room, commanding attention like the born leader he fashioned himself to be. "I've known Dominic Fuller for 6 years," Preston began. "In that time, I've seen a man who built a business from nothing, who prioritized his family above all else, and who showed unwavering loyalty to his wife, even when that loyalty was not deserved." Gasps punctuated the quiet. Dominic remained still, his face impassive while his mind raced. This was not what he'd expected. "What most of you do not know," Preston continued, "is that 3 years ago, when Novak Properties faced bankruptcy after the River District failure, it was Dominic who quietly invested to keep us afloat. He did it as a favor to Valerie, who asked him to help her friend's husband, me, without seeking recognition or repayment." Dominic felt Olivia looking up at him questioningly. He had not told her about the investment, nearly $2 million that had never been repaid. The truth is, Preston said, his voice dropping to a theatrical near whisper that nonetheless carried across the hushed room, I owe my current success to Dominic's generosity. A generosity I've repaid by taking his wife. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Valerie's face drained of color. And one more thing, Preston added, turning to Howard Reed. About used goods, I think everyone should know that the only reason Dominic's construction loan for the Westbrook project was denied was because you, Howard, called in favors to block it, your own nephew. Howard sputtered, his face reddening. That's an absolute fabrication. Is it? Preston raised an eyebrow. I was at that board meeting. I heard your call, Howard. The weight of the truth pressed down on the entire room, leaving judgment hanging in the air as Preston returned to Valerie's side. You said, and I quote, the Fuller boy needs to learn his place, Preston continued, his voice clear in the stunned silence. Eleanor Reed covered her mouth in shock, staring at her brother-in-law. Preston returned to Dominic's table and extended his hand again. Thank you for coming tonight. Your daughter deserves to know what kind of man her father really is. Dominic stood slowly, towering over Preston by several inches. He did not take the offered hand. If you excuse us, Dominic said quietly, my daughter and I were just leaving. As they walked toward the door, Dominic felt every eye on them. Olivia's small hand gripped as tightly. Is it true, Daddy? She whispered. Did you really help Preston when he was in trouble? Yes, Dominic answered simply. Then why did Mom leave you for him? That's not fair. Life rarely is, butterfly, but we keep moving forward. At the ballroom doors, Dominic paused and turned back. Valerie was furiously whispering to Preston, whose magnanimous expression had hardened to something colder. Outside in the crisp evening air, Dominic helped Olivia into his car. As he started the engine, his phone buzzed with a text from a number he did not recognize. We need to talk. Coffee tomorrow? P. Dominic deleted the message without responding. Whatever game Preston was playing, Dominic would not be a pawn. The following morning, Dominic arrived at his office earlier than usual. Trevor was already there, coffee in hand. I heard about last night, Trevor said. News travels fast in architectural circles. Preston putting on a show, Dominic replied, sorting through blueprints. Question is why? Maybe guilty conscience. Dominic laughed darkly. Preston Novak does not have a conscience. He has strategies. Before Trevor could respond, Dominic's assistant buzzed through the intercom. Mr. Fuller, there's a Nora Clark here to see you. She does not have an appointment, but she says it's important. Dominic frowned. The name meant nothing to him. Send her in. The woman who entered his office was in her early 30s, expensively dressed, but with a nervousness that showed in how she clutched her designer handbag. Mr. Fuller, thank you for seeing me. She perched on the edge of the visitor's chair. I'm Abigail Novak's sister, Preston's ex-wife. Dominic's interest sharpened. What can I do for you, Ms. Clark? After what Preston did at the engagement dinner last night, Abigail thought you should have this. She withdrew a USB drive from her purse. It's why Abigail agreed to the divorce settlement without fighting. Not for the money, but because of what's on here. And what exactly is that? Nora's eyes darted to the door. Evidence that Preston's company has been systematically stealing your architectural designs for the past year. Your ex-wife, has been helping him. The revelation should have shocked Dominic, but strangely he felt nothing but calm. The pieces were finally falling into place. After Nora left, Dominic plugged the USB drive into his computer. Instantly, a series of folders appeared on the screen, each labeled with dates and project names that were painfully familiar. It contained dozens of folders with dates going back 14 months, right when Valerie had started redecorating his home office and insisted on a new filing system for his work. Each folder held photographed pages from Dominic's private sketchbooks, proposals he drafted but never submitted, and client communications that should have been confidential. The most recent folder was dated just 3 weeks ago, well after Valerie had moved out. Trevor whistled low when Dominic showed him the files. They've been systematically underbidding us with our own designs. That's why we lost the riverfront contract. And the municipal center, Dominic added. And the tech campus. This is industrial espionage, Dom. We can sue them into oblivion. Dominic closed the laptop. Not yet. First, I want to understand Preston's angle from last night. Why expose Howard? Why paint himself as the villain? Maybe he thinks coming clean protects him somehow. Or maybe, Dominic said slowly, he is setting up something bigger. He swiveled in his chair, looking out at the skyline he helped shape. Get Malcolm on the phone. I need him to dig deeper into Preston's finances and find out who else has access to my house. Later that day, as Dominic reviewed revised blueprints for the Sullivan project, his phone rang with Valerie's number. Why are not you answering Preston's calls? She demanded without preamble. Hello to you, too, Valerie. Do not play games, Dominic. After the stunt he pulled last night, trying to make it up to you, the least you could do is be civil. Dominic set down his pencil. Make it up to me? Is that what you call it? He publicly acknowledged your help. Do you know how much that cost him? His investors are questioning his judgment now. Fascinating, Dominic replied. Is that concern I hear in your voice, Valerie? For Preston's investors? She sighed dramatically. We were trying to move forward amicably. For Olivia's sake. Olivia's sake, Dominic repeated. The same Olivia who's being told her family photos are trash to be purged. A pause. Preston was just helping me declutter. Of course. Well, give my regards to your fiancé. Tell him I'm too busy to chat. I'm designing something special. After hanging up, Dominic opened his bottom desk drawer and removed a leather sketchbook, one he had not used since discovering Valerie's betrayal. Inside were his initial concept drawings for his dream project, a sustainable mixed-use development called Legacy Heights that would transform the abandoned industrial district. He de-shelved the project during the divorce proceedings, lacking both capital and emotional bandwidth. Now, looking at the sketches again, a plan began to form in his mind. That evening, Dominic picked up Olivia for their midweek dinner, a recent allowance from the court. As they shared pizza, Olivia seemed unusually contemplative. Dad, why did Uncle Howard try to hurt your project? Dominic set down his slice. Family is complicated sometimes, Liv. He looked into her serious green eyes, wanting her to know some truths, but not the burdens that belonged only to adults. Your great-uncle Howard always believed success should come through connections, not hard work. Is that why Mom left? Because you work too hard. No, butterfly. Dominic chose his words carefully. Your mom and I grew in different directions. Sometimes that happens with adults. Olivia nodded solemnly. Preston has a little boy, you know, from before he married his first wife. Dominic froze. Preston has a child? His name is Leo. He's 11. I saw his picture in Preston's wallet. When I asked, Preston got really mad and said it was a nephew. But then I heard him on the phone later saying, I see not have Leo visit right now, Caroline. It's complicated. Dominic filed away this information carefully. That's very interesting, Liv. Very interesting indeed. The exclusive Westridge Golf Club lounge hummed with power lunches and deal-making. Dominic, rarely seen in such old money establishments, drew curious glances as he approached the corner table where Winston Blake held court. Winston, 72, silver-haired and ruthless, controlled the largest private equity firm in the state. He rejected Dominic's loan application 3 years earlier with a dismissive, too speculative. Now he stood to shake Dominic's hand with unexpected warmth. Fuller. Good to see you. Scotch. Dominic declined with a smile. Bit early for me, Winston. Thank you for agreeing to meet. Intriguing proposal you sent over. Very intriguing indeed. Winston leaned forward. Legacy Heights. Ambitious name for an ambitious project. It's more than a name, Dominic replied, pulling out his tablet to display the renderings. It's a statement about sustainable urban renewal, taking a forgotten district and creating something lasting. For 30 minutes, Dominic walked Winston through the proposal. Affordable housing blended with luxury units, green spaces, local business incubators, and cutting-edge renewable energy infrastructure. Winston's bushy eyebrows rose higher with each slide. Remarkable vision. But why bring it to me? After our last interaction, I'd have thought Blake Equity would be last on your list. Dominic met the older man's gaze directly. Because Preston Novak approached you last week with a similar concept for the same district. But his version prioritizes luxury condos and high-end retail, pricing out current residents. The community backlash would be significant. Winston's expression remained neutral, but a flicker in his eyes confirmed Dominic's intelligence was accurate. And how would you know what proposals cross my desk, Fuller? Dominic smiled thinly. I know Preston has been shopping around a suspiciously familiar concept. One that bears remarkable similarities to my original vision from 3 years ago. Industrial espionage is a serious accusation. It is, Dominic agreed. One I'm prepared to substantiate in court if necessary. But I'd rather focus on building something extraordinary. Winston studied him for a long moment. You've changed, Fuller. The note of respect in his voice was unmistakable. Adversity tends to have that effect. Your ex-wife's engagement has been the talk of certain circles, particularly after Novak's unusual speech. Dominic shrugged. Ancient history? Winston tapped his fingers against his glass thoughtfully. Tell me something. This project, is it about rebuilding a neighborhood or rebuilding yourself? Does it matter if the result benefits thousands of people? A slow smile spread across Winston's face. Come to my office tomorrow. Bring your full proposal. And Fuller? Bring your lawyer too. I think we have a deal to structure. That evening, Dominic met Trevor and Benjamin at his apartment to discuss the meeting. Benjamin reviewed the preliminary terms while Trevor examined the financial projections. Blake Equity is offering 80% of the needed capital, Benjamin said, eyes widening. That's unprecedented for them. Trevor whistled. And they not taking controlling interest. ULL maintain creative and operational control. Dominic poured 3 glasses of bourbon. Winston Blake recognizes value. And he's not fond of Preston's methods. Speaking of methods, Trevor said, accepting the drink, Malcolm's report came in. He slid a folder across the table. Preston's been hiding money offshore for years. That bankruptcy 3 years ago, it was manufactured to avoid paying contractors while he moved assets around. Dominic leafed through the documents. And the $2 million I invested went straight to an account in the Caymans. Never touched his business. Benjamin frowned. This is serious fraud, Dom. We could take this to the SEC. Not yet, Dominic replied. There's more to uncover. He turned to a section of the report. What's this about a property in Vermont? Trevor said, that's the interesting part. Preston owns a lakefront estate in Burlington under a shell company. Visits 6 times a year like clockwork. Let me guess, Dominic said, to see his son. Trevor's eyebrows shot up. How did you know about Leo? Olivia mentioned him. Preston's keeping the boy a secret from Valerie. Not just Valerie, Trevor added. Preston's been paying his ex-girlfriend Caroline Weber $20,000 a month in undocumented cash to keep Leo out of the spotlight. The boy does not even have Preston's last name. Dominic tapped the folder thoughtfully. Preston values his public image above all else. The successful businessman, the perfect husband, now the magnanimous fiancé. What are you thinking, Dom? Benjamin asked. I'm thinking it's time I met Caroline Weber. 2 days later, Dominic stood on the porch of a modest craftsman home in Burlington, Vermont. The autumn leaves painted the surrounding mountains in brilliant oranges and reds. The door opened to reveal a striking woman in her early 40s, her suspicious expression softening slightly at Dominic's unexpected appearance. Caroline Weber? I'm Dominic Fuller. Recognition flashed in her eyes. Valerie's ex-husband. May I come in? It concerns Leo. Caroline hesitated, then nodded and opened the door wider, gesturing for Dominic to step inside. The warmth of the house contrasted with the crisp chill outside, and next to the glowing stove, a child's laughter echoed faintly from another room. Inside, over coffee, Caroline listened intently as Dominic explained the situation without embellishment. When he finished, she set down her mug with a steady hand. Preston told me he'd leave his wife for us years ago. Then he met Valerie, and suddenly I was an inconvenience. Her mouth twisted bitterly. The money keeps Leo in private school and me silent. And if the money stopped, Caroline's eyes sharpened. Are you suggesting I blackmail him? Not my style, Mr. Fuller. Not blackmail. Justice, Dominic clarified. Preston defrauded me of $2 million while pursuing my wife. Now he's stealing my professional designs while presenting himself as a victim of circumstance. Caroline leaned back, studying him. What exactly do you want from me? Your testimony, if it comes to that. And perhaps an introduction to Leo. Why Leo? Dominic smiled slightly. Because every child deserves to know their father. And every father should acknowledge their child publicly. Caroline considered this, then nodded slowly. When Preston visits next month for Leo's birthday, come back. I'll make the introduction. But understand this, I'm doing it for Leo, not for your vendetta. Fair enough, Dominic agreed. As he left, Caroline called after him. Mr. Fuller? For what it's worth, Valerie called here once. Looking for Preston when he claimed to be on a business trip. I told her the truth that he was taking Leo camping. She hung up without a word. Never mentioned it to him. Never called back. When was this? About 8 months before your divorce. Dominic absorbed this information silently. Another piece of the puzzle falling into place. On the flight back, Dominic opened his laptop to find an email from an unfamiliar address. The subject line reads simply, I can help you destroy them both. The sender's name, Abigail Novak. The Highline Hotel's rooftop bar offered panoramic views of the city skyline. Dominic arrived precisely on time, spotting Abigail Novak at a corner table overlooking the eastern vista. She was thinner than he remembered from social gatherings, her trademark luminous smile replaced by something more measured. "Thank you for meeting me," she said as he sat across from her. Dominic studied Preston's ex-wife carefully. "Your email was intriguing." A server approached and Abigail ordered a gin martini. Dominic requested sparkling water. "Not drinking these days?" she asked with a raised eyebrow. "Clear head makes for better decisions." She nodded appreciatively. "Smart. I was not so disciplined after Preston left. Spent a month with top-shelf vodka as my primary food group. And now I'm focused." Abigail's perfectly manicured nails tapped against the table. "I assume my sister showed you the files." "She did. Impressive collection. Preston does not realize I cloned his laptop before signing the divorce papers. Old habits from my cybersecurity days." She accepted her martini from the returning server. "But those files are just the appetizer." Dominic leaned forward slightly. "I'm listening." Preston's been systematically stealing architectural concepts for years, not just yours. He has a team in Manila that converts hand sketches to digital renderings overnight. Meanwhile, he maintains offshore accounts to hide profits from projects built on stolen designs. "All useful information," Dominic acknowledged. "But why share it with me? Your settlement was generous by any standard." Abigail's laugh held no humor. "Money does not heal humiliation. Dominic, Preston did not just leave me. He erased me 12 years together, reduced to a footnote in his biography. No mention of my contributions to building his company. No acknowledgement of the sacrifices I made." She sipped her martini. "And then there's Valerie. What about her?" "She approached me 6 months before your divorce. Wanted to clear the air over lunch. Spent an hour asking questions about Preston's schedule, his habits, his vulnerabilities. All under the guise of friendship." Abigail's eyes hardened. She was mapping his life to insert herself into it. Like a virus scanning for weaknesses in a system. Dominic remained expressionless, though internally he was recalibrating his understanding of the betrayal's timeline. "Why tell me this now?" "Because their engagement announcement included a line about finding each other after respective divorces, brought together by mutual respect and shared values." Abigail nearly spat the words. "Respect. Values. They rewriting history to make their affair seem noble. And you want?" "I want the truth exposed. I want Preston's carefully constructed image shattered. And from what I've heard about your Legacy Heights project, you're in a position to do just that." Dominic raised an eyebrow. "News travels fast. Winston Blake is my godfather." Abigail smiled thinly. "He does not make $80 million investments without consultations." For the next hour, they mapped out a strategy, Abigail providing access to Preston's private servers, Dominic offering insights into Valerie's vulnerabilities. As they concluded, Dominic asked the question that had been lingering. "Did you know about Leo?" Abigail's expression softened slightly. "Yes. Preston thought I did not, but I've known since our 3rd year of marriage. Caroline reached out to me directly, woman to woman. I chose not to confront him." "Why?" "Strategy," she replied simply. "In chess, you do not reveal your knowledge of your opponent's weakness until the moment it provides maximum advantage. And did you ever find that moment?" "I'm finding it now." Abigail stood, gathering her purse. "I'll have the server add my drink to your tab. Consider it a down payment on our partnership." After she left, Dominic remained, watching the sunset paint the cityscape in golden hues. His phone shined with a text from Benjamin, court date set for custody review. Next Monday, 9 a.m. The timing could not have been better. The weekend with Olivia passed too quickly, filled with board games, laughter, and quiet conversations that reminded Dominic of all that truly mattered. They visited the Natural History Museum, built model skyscrapers, and watched movies with unnecessarily large bowls of popcorn. Dominic noticed his daughter seemed more settled than in previous visits, less anxious about returning to Valerie's. "Dad," she asked Sunday evening as he prepared dinner, "are you still sad about Mom?" Dominic considered the question carefully as he chopped vegetables. "I was sad for a long time. Not anymore." "That's good." Olivia perched on a kitchen stool. "Because I heard Mom and Preston fighting last night." Dominic's hands stilled. "Oh." Preston got a letter that made him really angry. He said Mom promised someone named Leo would never be part of their lives. Mom yelled that she never even knew about Leo until last week. Olivia twirled a strand of hair around her finger. "Is Leo going to be my stepbrother?" "That would be Preston's decision," Dominic replied neutrally. How do you feel about that possibility? Olivia shrugged. I'd rather live with you all the time anyway. The next morning, Dominic arrived at family court in his best suit, Benjamin beside him with a thick portfolio of documents. Valerie and Lawrence Stanton were already seated, but Preston was notably absent. Judge Woodson called the hearing to order promptly at 9. I understand we rehear for a reassessment of the custody arrangement for Olivia Fuller. Mr. Hayes, you filed for a modification. Benjamin stood. Yes, Your Honor. We re-seeking primary physical custody for Mr. Fuller with liberal visitation for Mrs. Fuller. Judge Woodson's eyebrows rose. That's a significant change from our current arrangement. On what grounds? Changed circumstances, Your Honor. We have documented evidence of Mrs. Fuller's increasingly chaotic home environment, inconsistent parenting schedule, and concerning behavior from her fiancé toward Olivia. Lawrence Stanton jumped to his feet. Objection, Your Honor. These are baseless accusations meant to, they fully substantiated, Benjamin interrupted smoothly, approaching with his portfolio including sworn statements from Olivia's teachers regarding missed school days, therapist recommendations, and documented instances of Mr. Novak's inappropriate comments to the child. As Judge Woodson reviewed the materials, the courtroom doors burst open. Preston strode in, his normally immaculate appearance noticeably disheveled. Apologies for my tardiness, Your Honor, he said, sliding into the seat beside Valerie. Mr. Novak, while you were not a party to these proceedings, I appreciate your concern for punctuality, Judge Woodson replied dryly. She returned her attention to the documents. Mr. Fuller, these materials are quite compelling. Thank you, Your Honor, Dominic responded. I've always wanted what's best for Olivia. Initially, I believed maintaining her routine with her mother supported that goal. Recent events have changed my assessment. Judge Woodson nodded thoughtfully. Mrs. Fuller, do you wish to respond to these allegations? Valerie stood, her tone carefully composed as she tried to defend her position before the court. Valerie stood, her composure slipping. Your Honor, my ex-husband is manipulating the situation. Yes, there have been some scheduling challenges as we plan our wedding, but Olivia is thriving. As for Preston's so-called inappropriate comments, children often misinterpret adult conversations. Interesting perspective, Judge Woodson noted. Mr. Stanton, anything to add? Before Lawrence could speak, Preston stood. Your Honor, if I may address the court, Judge Woodson hesitated, then nodded. Briefly, Mr. Novak, though I remind you that you have no standing in this custody matter. I understand. Preston straightened his tie. I simply wish to express that I've grown to care deeply for Olivia and would never intentionally cause her distress. If my presence has somehow complicated her life, I deeply regret that. Perhaps, he paused dramatically, a more balanced custody arrangement might indeed be in Olivia's best interest during this transition period. Valerie's head whipped toward Preston, shock evident on her face. Judge Woodson's expression remained neutral, but Dominic detected the faintest hint of distaste in her eyes as she observed the interplay. Given the documentation provided and the apparent agreement from all parties, I'm inclined to modify the custody arrangement, Judge Woodson declared. Primary physical custody will transfer to Mr. Fuller, with Mrs. Fuller having weekend visitation. We'll reassess in 6 months. Outside the courtroom, Valerie cornered Preston while Dominic and Benjamin gathered their materials. What the heck was that? She hissed, just loud enough for Dominic to overhear. You completely undermine me. Preston's response was too quiet to catch, but his expression was tense. When he noticed Dominic watching, he approached with an extended hand. Congratulations on the custody modification, Preston said smoothly. A good outcome for Olivia. Dominic ignored the offered hand. Interesting timing on your change of heart. Sometimes clarity comes when we least expect it. Indeed. Dominic smiled thinly. Speaking of clarity, how's Leo? 11 is such a formative age. Preston's facade cracked momentarily, his eyes widening before he regained control. I'm not sure what you were referring to. Of course you do. Caroline sends her regards. Before Preston could respond, Dominic turned away. Benjamin, let us finalize the paperwork. I want to pick up Olivia from school myself today. As they walked toward the elevators, Benjamin muttered, what was that about? Just setting the stage, Dominic replied. Act 3 is about to begin. The groundbreaking ceremony for Legacy Heights drew an impressive crowd despite the chilly November morning. City officials, investors, community leaders, and press gathered around the massive vacant lot that would soon become Dominic's vision realized. Winston Blake stood beside Dominic at the podium, unusual for the normally reclusive financier, adding weight to the occasion. Behind them sat Trevor, Benjamin, and most surprisingly, Abigail Novak, whose presence had already sparked whispers among the attendees. Today marks not just the beginning of a construction project, Dominic addressed the crowd, but the revitalization of a forgotten neighborhood. Legacy Heights will provide affordable housing, green spaces, and economic opportunities for the community that has called this area home for generations. Applause rippled through the audience. From his peripheral vision, Dominic noticed Preston and Valerie arriving late, hovering at the edges of the gathering. Their wedding was scheduled for the following weekend, a lavish affair at the Oakmont Club that had been featured in the society pages for months. "I'd like to acknowledge our primary investor," Dominic continued, gesturing to Winston. Blake Equity has shown tremendous faith in this vision, proving that ethical development and profitability are not mutually exclusive. Winston stepped forward. "When Dominic presented this concept, I recognized not just its economic potential, but its integrity. In an industry where original ideas are increasingly rare," he paused meaningfully. "Legacy Heights represents true innovation." As the ceremony concluded with the symbolic first shovel of dirt, reporters swarmed forward. A journalist from the Business Chronicle directed a question to Dominic. "Mr. Fuller, there are rumors that your ex-wife's fiancé, Preston Novak, presented a similar development concept to several investment firms before you secured funding. Any comment?" Before Dominic could respond, Winston interjected. "I can address that. Blake Equity received a proposal from Novak Properties that bore striking similarities to Mr. Fuller's original designs from 3 years ago. Our legal team determined the intellectual property clearly belonged to Fuller Architecture. We chose to partner with the innovator, not the imitator." The statement sent a ripple of murmurs through the press corps. Cameras swiveled toward Preston, who had gone visibly pale. Later, at the reception in the project's preview center, Dominic strategically positioned himself near the architectural model display. As expected, Preston approached, champagne glass in hand, fabricated smile firmly in place. "Impressive project, Dominic. Congratulations." "Thank you, Preston. I've had these plans for years. Waited for the right moment to unveil them." Preston's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Blake's comment to the press was unnecessary. "There are bound to be conceptual similarities in urban planning." "Similarities, yes. Identical sustainability metrics, financial projections, and community integration models that crosses into something else entirely." Dominic sipped his water. "But I'm sure your lawyers have advised you on the distinction. Are you threatening legal action?" "Not at all. I'm celebrating my project's launch. Your concerns about litigation seem telling, though." Preston leaned closer, his voice dropping. "You do not know everything, Dominic. There are things that could ruin reputations, yours included. Be careful with how you play this next chapter." Dominic held Preston's gaze, unflinching. "I always play to build, not destroy." The implication hung in the air, every bit as heavy as the tension boiling just beneath the surface. "What exactly do you want, Fuller? Money? Public apology? Name it." "Nothing from you," Dominic replied calmly. "Though I'm curious, does Valerie know about the offshore accounts? Or why your bankruptcy 3 years ago was fabricated?" A flash of genuine alarm crossed Preston's face. "You re out of your depth." "Am I?" Interesting perspective from someone who will soon be receiving formal inquiries from the SEC. Dominic nodded toward the entrance where Valerie had appeared, scanning the room for Preston. "Your fiancée looking for you. Better not keep her waiting. I hear she values punctuality in her partners." As Preston stalked away, Abigail approached, champagne flute in hand. "That looked productive." "First tremors before the earthquake," Dominic confirmed. "Is everything set for the wedding day?" "Caroline and Leo arrive tomorrow. They staying at my apartment as planned." Dominic nodded. "And the SEC filing?" "Submitted this morning. Preston should receive formal notice of investigation within 48 hours. Abigail's smile was razor-sharp. "Impeccable timing, would not you say?" Across the room, Valerie was engaged in animated conversation with Preston. Her gestures became increasingly agitated as he spoke. When she noticed Dominic watching, she squared her shoulders and marched directly toward him. "What did you say to Preston?" she demanded, abandoning all pretense of social niceties. "Congratulated him on your upcoming wedding," Dominic replied evenly. "It's this weekend, is not it? Olivia is excited about her flower girl dress." Valerie's eyes narrowed. "Stop playing games, Dominic. First the custody hearing. Now this project launch, conveniently timed right before our wedding. You were trying to sabotage us. Interesting theory. But professionally speaking, today is about legacy heights. And personally speaking, he gestured between them, this chapter closed long ago. I've moved on, have not you? Something flashed across Valerie's face. Doubt, perhaps, or a momentary recognition of truth. She recovered quickly. Preston explained everything. About the project similarities, about your vendetta because he succeeded where you failed. Is that what he told you? Dominic asked quietly. Fascinating narrative. You might want to fact-check it before the SEC does. What are you talking about? Ask your fiancé about his finances sometime. Specifically where your joint accounts actually are. Dominic stepped back. Now if you excuse me, I have guests to attend to. 3 days later, Dominic picked up Olivia from school. As they drove home, she was uncharacteristically quiet. Everything okay, Butterfly? He asked. She fidgeted with her backpack strap. Mom and Preston were fighting all night. About money in some place called Cayman. Mom was crying and saying he lied to her. Dominic kept his expression neutral. That sounds difficult to hear. Then this morning, some people came to the door with papers. Preston told me to go to my room, but I listened from the hallway. Olivia looked up at Dominic, worry etched in her features as she struggled to understand the sudden shift in her family's world. They said words like investigation and fraud. Olivia looked up at him. What's happening, Dad? Dominic chose his words carefully. Sometimes adults make poor choices that have consequences. What's important is that you are safe and loved. Is their wedding still happening Saturday? As far as I know, Butterfly. Are you still excited to be Flower Girl? Olivia shrugged. I guess. Preston said I might have a surprise brother soon. Is that true? It might be, Dominic replied. How would you feel about that? I do not know. Preston said he's weird and I probably will not like him. Olivia's forehead creased. That's not a nice thing to say about your kid, is it? No, Dominic agreed gently. It's not. The Friday before the wedding, Dominic received a call from Malcolm. Preston's moving money, the investigator reported. Large transfers from the Cayman accounts to Switzerland. Classic pre-flight behavior. Flight? Dominic questioned. Guy's getting ready to run. The SEC investigation spooked him. He's canceled 3 meetings today and his assistant quit this morning. Apparently, he threw a stapler at her head. Dominic processed this information. Keep me posted on any travel arrangements he makes and make sure Caroline and Leo are comfortable. Tomorrow's going to be eventful. The morning of Valerie and Preston's wedding dawned clear and crisp. Dominic helped Olivia into her flower girl dress, a confection of ivory silk and lace that had cost more than his first car. You look beautiful, Butterfly, he told her, adjusting the flower crown in her hair. Thanks, Dad. She twirled once and stopped. Are you coming to the wedding too? I was not invited to the ceremony, but I'll be at the hotel to pick you up right after. This was only partially true. Dominic would indeed be at the Oakmont Club, just not in the way Valerie expected. After dropping Olivia with Valerie's mother at the bridal suite, Dominic met Trevor in the hotel bar. Everything in place? Dominic asked, checking his watch. Trevor nodded. Abigail and guests arrived through the service entrance as planned. They were in the holding room adjacent to the ballroom. Benjamin's with them, reviewing the timing. And our mutual friend says he'll only participate if there's a clear legal benefit to his situation. Dominic smiled slightly. Tell Mr. Blake his cooperation today will be noted favorably in our statement to federal investigators. At precisely 3:30 p.m. As the wedding ceremony concluded and guests filtered into the Oakmont's grand ballroom for the reception, Dominic positioned himself near the service entrance. Through the small window in the door, he could see Preston and Valerie entering to applause, their smiles fixed and brittle despite the celebratory atmosphere. When the couple reached the head table and the initial champagne toast had been delivered by Valerie's father, Dominic nodded to Trevor, who signaled through his earpiece. The ballroom doors opened. Uniformed federal agents and 2 plainclothes SEC investigators entered the ballroom, their arrival creating a wave of murmurs and uneasy silence rippling through the guests. Howard Reed was the first to notice, his champagne glass halting midway to his lips as Abigail Novak entered, followed by Winston Blake. And most dramatically, Caroline Weber with an 11-year-old boy who bore an unmistakable resemblance to Preston. Dominic stepped through the service entrance as conversation died and all eyes turned to the unexpected arrivals. Preston, at the head table, froze in visible shock. Beside him, Valerie's composure cracked completely. What is this? She demanded, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Before Preston could respond, Dominic strode to the center of the room. My apologies for the interruption, he addressed the crowd. I believe there are some introductions that should be made before the celebrations continue. Preston shot to his feet. Security, remove these people immediately. I'm afraid the Oakmont security team would not be intervening, Winston Blake announced calmly. As a founding member of this club, I've assured them this is a necessary family matter. The atmosphere in the ballroom grew tense as Dominic gestured toward Caroline and the boy. Allow me to introduce Caroline Weber and Leo Weber, Dominic said, his voice clear. Leo is Preston's son, born 11 years ago and systematically erased from Preston's public life despite monthly cash payments of $20,000 to maintain his absence. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Preston's face contorted with rage. This is slander, he shouted. I'll sue you into bankruptcy, Fuller. Interesting choice of words, Dominic replied. Speaking of bankruptcy, perhaps you'd like to explain to your new bride why the SEC is investigating your fabricated financial crisis 3 years ago, the one where you convinced me to invest $2 million that went directly to offshore accounts. All eyes swiveled to Valerie, whose wedding dress suddenly seemed too large for her diminished presence. Or, Dominic continued, maybe Abigail would like to explain how your husband of 1 hour systematically stole architectural designs from my firm using information Valerie provided during their affair? Preston lunged forward only to be restrained by his best man. You've lost your mind. This is my wedding day. Yes, it is, Dominic agreed. A day of truth and new beginnings. Leo has waited 11 years to be acknowledged by his father. Seems an appropriate occasion. Caroline guided Leo forward, the boy's eyes wide and uncertain. Preston, she said quietly, your son just wanted to meet you properly. That's all we ever wanted. Preston's expression shifted as he calculated his options before the watching crowd. His legendary charm surfaced like a mask sliding into place. Of course, he said, his voice suddenly gentle. Leo, I'm sorry for the circumstances of our meeting. We should talk privately. After you explain the offshore accounts, Valerie demanded, finding her voice. After you explain the SEC investigation that you assured me was a misunderstanding. Howard Reed stood from his table, pointing at Dominic. This is outrageous. You have no right. Dominic met his uncle's glare, refusing to look away as the agents approached Preston and Valerie, their official badges catching the light for all to see. You were just jealous that Valerie upgraded to a real man with real success. Interesting perspective, Winston Blake interjected, particularly given that Preston's real success appears largely built on fraud. As his primary lender, Blake Equity has received some rather disturbing financial disclosures this week. The ballroom had transformed from wedding celebration to public reckoning. Guests whispered frantically, phones recording surreptitiously despite the Oakmont's no photography policy. Dominic approached the head table directly. I did not come to destroy your wedding day. I came to ensure everyone here understands exactly who they re-celebrating. He turned to address the room. 3 years ago, at this very club, I was denied membership despite my professional accomplishments. Howard Reed, my own uncle, told the committee I lacked the right background. Tonight, I stand before you not seeking acceptance, but offering truth. Preston's facade finally cracked completely. You think you won? You accomplished nothing except proving you as vindictive and petty as I always said you were. On the contrary, Dominic replied calmly. I've reclaimed what was stolen, my designs, my reputation, and most importantly, my daughter's future. He glanced toward Valerie. I never wanted this for you. Despite everything, I hoped you'd find happiness, but not built on lies. Valerie's perfectly applied makeup could not conceal her devastation. You planned this. All of it. No, Dominic shook his head. I simply stopped protecting people who betrayed me. There's a difference. As security finally began moving toward the disruption, Dominic spotted Olivia watching, wide-eyed, from the doorway where the flower girls had been waiting. He walked directly to her, kneeling to her level. I'm sorry you had to see this, Butterfly, he said softly. She looked from him to the chaos unfolding behind them. Is Mom okay? She will be. Eventually, he said, taking her small hand. Ready to go home? Olivia nodded, then glanced back at her mother. Should we wait for Mom? I think your mom and Preston have some important conversations ahead. We'll talk to her tomorrow. As they walked out through the Oakmont's grand foyer, past the whispers and stares, Dominic heard Preston's raised voice from the ballroom. This changes nothing. The SEC has nothing concrete. Blake is bluffing. Outside in the late afternoon sunlight, Olivia looked up at him. Dad? Was that boy really Preston's son? Yes, Butterfly. And Preston kept him a secret? Even from Mom? Adults sometimes make complicated choices, Dominic replied carefully. Not always good ones. Olivia considered this, then squeezed his hand. I'm glad you were not complicated like that. As they reached the car, Dominic's phone buzzed with a text from Benjamin. SEC just issued an arrest warrant for PN. Agents waiting at airport and residence. Valerie not implicated yet. Dominic slipped the phone back into his pocket without responding. He looked up at the sky, feeling a weight finally lift as the sun dipped lower, a different kind of ending and a new beginning for both him and Olivia. The wheels of justice would turn without his further involvement. The story dominated local news for weeks. The headlines progressed from society wedding turns to chaos to developer Novak arrested on fraud charges to architectural espionage inside the Fuller Novak case. Each day brought new revelations about Preston's financial deceptions and the systematic theft of intellectual property. Dominic maintained public silence, focusing instead on Olivia and the groundbreaking of Legacy Heights. The project had received additional funding after the scandal broke, with several investors specifically citing their desire to support ethical development, in contrast to Novak's methods. 3 weeks after the wedding fiasco, Dominic received a text from Valerie requesting a meeting. They arranged to meet at a neutral coffee shop downtown, away from familiar eyes. She looked different, the polished perfection replaced by something more human and fragile. Her engagement ring was noticeably absent. Thank you for agreeing to see me, she said as Dominic sat across from her. How are you holding up? He asked, genuinely curious. Valerie gave a hollow laugh. My husband of 3 hours is facing federal charges. I've discovered my entire relationship was founded on lies, and I'm being called the Black Widow of architecture in industry gossip. How do you think? I never wanted public humiliation for you, Dominic said quietly. Just truth. Truth, she repeated. Such a simple word for something so devastating. She stirred her coffee absently. I knew about Leo. Dominic raised an eyebrow. Since when? Since before we divorced. I found a photo in Preston's wallet, confronted him. He swore the boy meant nothing to him. That Caroline was extorting him. Valerie's eyes lifted to meet his. I chose to believe him because the alternative was accepting I destroyed our marriage for someone even more deceitful than I was. Why tell me this now? Because I owe you the truth at minimum. She straightened her shoulders. I've withdrawn my claims against you in the divorce settlement. The house is yours. I never wanted it anyway. And I'm not contesting the custody arrangement. Dominic studied her carefully. I appreciate that. But why the sudden change? It's not sudden. Seeing you at the Oakmont, dignified, controlled, righteous in your anger, made me realize how far I'd fallen. Valerie swallowed hard. The woman who married you would never have become the person I am now. People change, Valerie. Not always for the better. Preston's attorneys have approached me about testifying against you, she said abruptly. They reclaiming corporate espionage, saying you planted evidence. Dominic remained impassive. And will you? No. Valerie shook her head firmly. I've done enough damage. Besides, a ghost of her former confidence flickered across her face. I've kept records of my own. Preston did not realize I documented his instructions to photograph your designs. She offered Dominic a faint, almost redemptive smile, a glimmer of accountability and the faintest hint of closure. Self-protection was one lesson I learned well from him. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their shared history settling between them. Olivia misses you, Dominic finally said. Despite everything, she loves you very much. Tears welled in Valerie's eyes. I've been afraid to call. Afraid of what you told her about me. I've told her nothing but the truth, that adults sometimes make mistakes, that you love her. And that our issues have nothing to do with her. Dominic checked his watch. She's with Trevor and his wife tonight. Why don't you come by the house tomorrow evening? Have dinner with her. You'd allow that? After everything? I'm not interested in punishing Olivia for our mistakes. Dominic stood to leave. 7:00. She likes the pasta with broccoli you used to make. As he reached the door, Valerie called after him. Dominic? I am sorry. Not just for getting caught, but for what I did. He nodded once in acknowledgement before stepping into the evening air. The next morning brought news that Preston had accepted a plea deal admitting to securities fraud and corporate espionage in exchange for reduced charges. The headlines noted that several unnamed co-conspirators were cooperating with authorities. Dominic was reviewing the plea details in his office when his assistant announced an unexpected visitor, Howard Reed. His uncle had aged a decade in a month. The bluster and arrogance had drained away, leaving a diminished figure in an expensive suit that suddenly seemed too large. Dominic, Howard said, remaining standing even when offered a seat. I'll be brief. Your father would be proud of the man you've become. Dominic leaned back, surprised by the opening. A strange assessment given your previous opinions. Howard winced. I deserve that. I've spent my life valuing the wrong things: status, connections, appearances. Watching you stand in that ballroom, speaking truth regardless of consequences. He shook his head. It was like seeing your father again. Why are you here, Howard? To apologize primarily. And to let you know I've resigned from the Oakmont Membership Committee. My final act was recommending your application be reconsidered. Dominic smiled faintly. I'm no longer interested in joining. I suspected as much. Howard shifted uncomfortably. There's one other matter. Winston Blake approached me about investing in Legacy Heights through my foundation. I'd like your permission to proceed. No strings attached. Dominic considered his uncle, the man who had undermined him for years, who had laughed at his humiliation, now seeking absolution through financial involvement. The project does not need additional funding, Dominic replied. But the community outreach program could use support for arts education. If that interests your foundation, Trevor can connect you with the program director. Relief washed over Howard's face. Thank you. I do not expect forgiveness. Good, Dominic interrupted. Because I'm not offering it. Howard nodded, quietly accepting the rebuke, and left without another word. Dominic turned his attention back to his desk, feeling a sense of closure settle in, the past finally acknowledged, the future open and waiting. I'm acknowledging your attempt at amends while maintaining boundaries. That's all. Howard nodded, accepting the terms with unusual humility. Understood. Please give my regards to Olivia. After Howard left, Dominic called Trevor. How's the site prep going? On schedule, Trevor replied. The environmental assessment came back clean. We can start foundation work next week. Good. Any word on Preston's plea fallout? Benjamin says the SEC is focusing on 3 of Preston's senior executives now. Valerie is officially in the clear. Her documentation helped establish the timeline of theft. Dominic absorbed this information. And Caroline and Leo? Preston's settlement includes formal acknowledgement of paternity and a trust fund for Leo's education. Caroline is satisfied, though she says Leo is still processing everything. Understandable, Dominic replied. Any child would struggle with that level of rejection. That evening, Dominic arrived home to find Olivia anxiously watching the clock. Is Mom really coming for dinner? She is, he confirmed. Why did not you help me set the table? As they arranged plates and glasses, Olivia asked the question that had clearly been weighing on her. Are you and Mom getting back together? Dominic knelt to her level. No, butterfly. That chapter of our lives is closed. But we both your parents and we both love you. Tonight is about you having time with your mom. Because she is sad about Preston? Because she is your mother and that relationship is important. Dominic brushed a strand of hair from her face. Adults can be angry with each other and still value what matters most. Remember that always. When Valerie arrived punctual, bearing flowers and Olivia's favorite dessert, the evening progressed with surprising ease. They focused on Olivia, creating a bubble of normalcy amidst the wreckage of recent events. After dinner, while Olivia showed Valerie her latest school project upstairs, Dominic received a text from Abigail. Preston's plea includes forfeiture of the Vermont property. Caroline is considering purchasing it to provide stability for Leo. Thought you'd want to know. Dominic replied with a simple, fitting resolution. Thank you. Later, after Valerie had left and Olivia was asleep, Dominic sat on his back porch, contemplating the stars above. His phone buzzed with another message, this time from Benjamin. Final divorce decree arrived today. Officially a free man. Celebratory drink tomorrow? Dominic smiled slightly. Thanks, but I am taking Olivia to the Legacy Heights site. Rain check. Freedom, Dominic reflected, was not found in legal documents or public vindication. It was in the ability to build something meaningful from the ashes of betrayal. Not just a development project, but a life guided by principles rather than bitterness. The vengeance he orchestrated had not brought him joy. Only clarity and a cauterized wound where trust had once lived. That was enough. The next morning, as the sun crested over the construction site, Dominic and Olivia stood together in bright yellow hard hats. 1 year later, the grand opening of Legacy Heights' first phase drew an impressive crowd. The mixed-use development had transformed a formerly abandoned industrial zone into a vibrant community hub, with affordable housing units, green spaces, and local businesses already thriving. Dominic stood on the podium, Olivia beside him as he prepared to cut the ceremonial ribbon. Behind them, the distinctive eco-friendly architecture of his original vision rose against the skyline, no longer just renderings but realized structures where families now lived. Today marks not an ending but a beginning, Dominic addressed the gathered community members and press. Legacy Heights represents what's possible when development serves community needs rather than merely extracting value from neighborhoods. Olivia beamed with pride as cameras flashed. At 10, she had developed a keen interest in architecture, often spending afternoons at Dominic's office sketching her own building designs. After the ceremony, as attendees explored the new public plaza, Trevor approached with a news alert on his phone. Preston's sentencing was finalized this morning. 8 years, eligible for parole in 5. Dominic nodded, unsurprised. The case had continued to unfold over the previous year, revealing increasingly complex financial deceptions. Preston had maintained his public stance of persecution until former associates began testifying against him, at which point his defense had shifted to remorse and cooperation. And the restitution? Dominic asked. Full repayment to all defrauded investors, including your $2 million plus interest. Trevor slipped his phone back into his pocket. Blake Equity is handling the distribution. Winston Blake himself approached, looking remarkably unchanged by the passing year. Fuller, magnificent achievement here. The sustainable energy systems alone are revolutionary for this market. Thank you for believing in the vision, Dominic replied, shaking the older man's hand. Vision without execution is hallucination, Winston quoted. You delivered exactly what you promised, a rarity in this business. He lowered his voice. Heard about Novak's sentencing? Just now. Justice served, I'd say. Though I suspect your reclaimed reputation and this, he gestured to the development around them, is more satisfying than seeing him behind bars. Dominic considered this. The project matters more than vindication. Yes. Winston nodded approvingly. Mark of a true builder. Speaking of which, the western parcel we discussed? My board approved the acquisition yesterday. When you're ready to begin phase 2, the funding is secured. As Winston moved on to greet other guests, Dominic spotted an unexpected figure at the edge of the crowd, Caroline Weber with Leo beside her. The boy had grown several inches since the wedding confrontation, his resemblance to Preston even more pronounced. Dominic approached them, curious about their presence. Caroline, Leo, this is a surprise. Caroline smiled warmly, her demeanor more relaxed than he remembered. Leo wanted to see the place you built. He keeps talking about being an architect like you or his dad. Leo looked up at Dominic, a small grin on his face. Congratulations, Mr. Fuller. This place is amazing. For the first time, Dominic felt a sense of true completion, one born not of retribution or compensation but of community and hope. As laughter drifted across the plaza and children played in the sunlight, he realized this was the real legacy he wanted, one built on resilience, kindness, and the promise of new beginnings. Caroline smiled warmly. Leo wanted to see your cool buildings. He's developed quite an interest in architecture this past year. The boy, less shy than at their previous meeting, looked up at Dominic with earnest eyes. Did you really design all of this yourself? With a talented team, Dominic confirmed. Are you interested in how buildings are designed? Leo nodded enthusiastically. Mom bought me drafting tools for my birthday. I've been practicing. Perhaps you'd like a tour of the sustainable energy systems. They were quite remarkable. As Dominic led them through the development, explaining the innovative features, he was struck by Leo's intelligent questions and genuine curiosity. The boy bore no responsibility for his father's actions, yet carried the weight of that legacy nonetheless. Later, as the event wound down, Dominic found himself approached by another unexpected visitor, Valerie. Their interactions over the past year had been limited to Olivia-related matters, gradually evolving from tense formality to a functional co-parenting relationship. Impressive achievement, she said, gesturing to the development around them. Truly visionary. Thank you, Dominic replied. Olivia will be happy you came. She's around here somewhere, probably explaining the rainwater collection system to anyone who'll listen. Valerie smiled. She sent me 3 separate texts making sure I'd be here. Our daughter is nothing if not persistent. Wonder where she gets that from. A moment of genuine amusement passed between them, not forgiveness, but acknowledgement of shared history. I'm moving, Valerie said after a pause. Portland. I've accepted a position with an urban planning firm there. Dominic absorbed this news. Olivia mentioned you'd had some interviews. Congratulations. I'd like her to visit during school breaks, if that's agreeable. The change will be adjustment enough without losing regular contact. Of course, Dominic agreed. We can work out the logistics. Valerie hesitated, then added, I saw Caroline and Leo earlier. That was generous of you, considering. Leo is not responsible for Preston's choices. No, none of us are, Valerie agreed quietly. Only our own. She straightened her shoulders. I should find Olivia before I go. Good luck with phase 2. As she walked away, Dominic reflected on the journey of the past 18 months. From betrayal and humiliation to professional vindication and personal rebuilding. He had emerged not just intact, but transformed, hardened in some ways, more discerning in others, but ultimately focused on creation rather than destruction. That evening, as Dominic and Olivia walked through the illuminated plaza of Legacy Heights, his daughter looked up at him thoughtfully. Dad, are you still mad at Mom for what happened? Dominic considered the question carefully. Not mad exactly. I do not trust her the way I once did, and that ca not be undone. But I've moved beyond anger because of forgiveness and because of priorities. Olivia squeezed his hand, understanding more than her 10 years might suggest as they continued along the bright, hope-filled walkways they had both helped to build. Dominic clarified, holding on to anger requires energy better spent elsewhere, on building things that matter, on moving forward. Olivia processed this with the seriousness she applied to all important concepts. Is that why you talked to Leo today? Even though his dad stole from you? Leo is just a child finding his own way. Like you. They reached the central water feature, a series of cascading pools that captured and recycled rainwater while creating a soothing backdrop for the residential units. What happens to Preston when he gets out of jail? Olivia asked, watching the water's patterns. That's for him to determine, Dominic replied. But his choices have created consequences that will follow him long after his sentence ends. Would you ever forgive him? Dominic looked up at the buildings surrounding them, his vision made real, stronger, and more refined through the fire of adversity. No, he answered honestly. Some betrayals leave permanent marks. I do not wish him further harm, but I would not pretend the past did not happen. The best revenge is not destruction, Olivia. It's building something so remarkable that those who tried to destroy you become irrelevant. As they continued their walk through the development, residents nodded greetings or stopped to express gratitude for specific features of their new homes. This, Dominic realized, was the true victory, not Preston's imprisonment or Valerie's regrets, but this tangible legacy rising from the rubble of betrayal. He had emerged not as a victim seeking retribution, but as an architect in every sense of the word, designing not just buildings but the very shape of his future on foundations too strong to be shaken again.